Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi arrived on Tuesday to the Russian city of Sochi, where he co-chairs the first African-Russian summit with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Presidential spokesperson Ambassador Bassem Radi said that an Egyptian-Russian summit between the two leaders is to be held during the visit. The talks will discuss means of boosting bilateral ties in various fields within the framework of the Comprehensive Partnership and Strategic Cooperation Agreement and keenness on continued intensified deliberations over issues of mutual concern. During the visit, President el-Sisi is to hold a number of meetings with African leaders taking part in the event besides his participation in the Economic Forum. The forum is to focus on a number of axes over developing trade, cooperation and economic ties between Russia and African states. African leaders and business society figures as well as investors from both sides will take part. Radi said the African-Russian summit, the first of its kind, will include 2 general sessions and will conclude with a final communique. He said it aims at boosting significant and historical ties between Russia and the African continent and expanding discussions between the two sides over means of facing common challenges.
Cairo and Moscow share a number of common goals to preserve and enhance bilateral cooperation. Meeting with President Vladimir Putin last year, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi discussed economic cooperation and the implementation of joint projects, as well as ways to build the two countries' growing military cooperation. Here's the story.
Meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi discussed economic cooperation and the implementation of joint projects, as well as ways to build on the two countries' growing military cooperation. During the visit, which coincided with the 75th anniversary of relations being established between Egypt and Russia, Putin issued a decree approving the signing of a comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation agreement. During the visit, President el-Sisi met with the chairman of the board of Euro-Asian Economic Commission. During the meeting, the president underlined the importance of reaching a free trade agreement that could contribute to doubling trade and joint investments. The EEC is the permanent regulatory body of the Euro-Asian Economic Union, a 5-country grouping of Armenia, Belarus, the Republic of Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic and the Russian Federation. The EAEU was keen to begin negotiations with Egypt on a free trade agreement. The president also met with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev and other senior Russian officials to discuss ways to bolster Russian investments in the Suez Canal economic zone. In May, Egypt and Russia signed a 50-year agreement to build a Russian industrial zone in the new Suez Canal economic zone. The zone, built on an area of 5.25 million square meters at a cost of $7 billion, is at the forefront of plans to increase trade and economic cooperation between the two countries. Russian investments in Egypt by the end of 2018 reached $6.7 billion, with more than 60% in the oil and gas sector. According to the Russian Federal Customs Service, the volume of bilateral trade between January and April 2018 reached $2.163 billion, a 49% increase on the same period last year. Russian exports to Egypt increased by 50% to reach $1.8 billion, while exports from Egypt recorded a 41% hike to $481 million. During the visit, officials from Egypt's Ministry of Electricity and Russia's State Atomic Energy Corporation updated el-Sisi and Putin on progress in constructing the nuclear power plant at Daba. Negotiations to build the plant, which will consist of 4 1,200 megawatts reactors, began in 2015. In May 2016, President el-Sisi approved an agreement under which Moscow provides a $25 billion loan to finance the construction of the 7-year project, to be paid off over 35 years. El-Sisi's meeting with Putin included a follow-up on project specifications and discussions of the timetable for the construction of the nuclear plant. Cairo and Moscow share a number of common goals, with both countries determined to preserve and enhance bilateral cooperation.
And for more on the African-Russian Summit, we are delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former assistant to the Foreign Minister. It's a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ambassador. Now, of course, this is the first summit of its kind. What is the importance, in your opinion, of boosting the Russian-African relations, and what are the main issues on the agenda of the summit?
This is a sort of first conference between Russia and Africa. But we have always the Egyptian initiative to join Africa with Europe. We started this in year 2000 in Cairo, where 68 heads of states from Europe and Africa had that meeting in Cairo in 2000. Then we established another source of relation in the TICAD, where our president joined the TICAD between Japan and Africa also, was last month in Tokyo. So we have also the relation between the Arabs and Africa. We are trying to establish such sort of relation. Now Russia is joining us, and Egypt really is leading this sort of efforts in order to make the balance a little bit to the favor of Africa. Africa is a very poor continent. It is the second largest continent, but it is the poorest one. The flow of money going out of Africa is much more than the money coming in, because Africa is paying its debts, it's paying its inputs invoice. So the Egyptian initiative now is talking about investing in Africa with the Egyptian experience, with finance coming whether from Russia, from Japan, from EU, or from the Arab countries. And I think we are making good steps towards this effort.
Indeed.
And the good thing that we want to stress that the Egyptian face in Africa is the most acceptable face in Africa. We are covering the whole continent with embassies and envoys, and we were lacking what we call the presidential level. In the last 20 years, we were really a little bit lazy going or coming or going to Africa or receiving African leaders. Now our president is very active concerning Africa. He's the chairman of this African year, and I hope that this will result good results, because this visit of our president to Russia, it has three phases. One is as the chairman of Africa. The second, it is his meeting with African leaders, especially with the Ethiopian Prime Minister. The third is the Egyptian-Russian relation, and we are always proud that we have built a pyramid in Egypt to commemorate the Egyptian-Russian relation. I am talking here about the Aswan High Dam. It is the highest dam in the world, and really we always look back to this source of relation with proud of our foreign relations, which establish such very good projects for the sake of Egypt. Now, year after another, we know the value of such a big project, the Aswan High Dam, and other, of course, industrial projects in Egypt with the help of our partners in Russia. In some years during the Sadat peace initiative, Russia was a little bit hesitant to continue relations with Egypt, so they lose our market, and we lost our market for some time. Instead of having 60% of our foreign trade with Russia and the Soviet bloc, now it is less than 11%. And it's time to restore this market in order to bring them back in the highest level of relations of our foreign relations.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Thank you for joining us and for your insight.